Ooh. All right. George,
So,
Seattle
man.
Mariners. I was going to start with the Seahawks today, but we're going to go some Mariners. Um, and for those that are listening, we're going to have two separate feeds. If you want, if you're a Seattle Seahawks fan, look up Seahawks on Tap podcast, and this is going to be the Mariners on Tap podcast. And if you like all Seattle sports, these will both always be on the Sports on Tap Seattle podcast. So the Mariners, well, the one topic I had written down was their ERA in June or in July was the best in baseball so far, and they've been 12-8 during that stretch. A win today would make them 13-8. A loss would make them 12-9. But it seems like a very disappointing season to have a team with pitching like that, a team that has a best ERA in a month of baseball in total pitching, and they can't break 500, right? And it feels like a lot of these games, the same games we had last year. Last night, the Mariners had Colton Wong hit a game-tying home run out of all people in the ninth inning. And then, of course, or a game-leading home run, actually, a go-ahead. And then, of course, we give up a run. Of course, we lose in extras. When last year, we'd be the team that came back and always found a way to win. So there's a lot going on, and it's frustrating. Like, I'm almost concerned that's what's going to happen again tonight. You know, you get this tie game, everything's exciting, and then we've been finding ways to blow it instead of winning by one run this year. And that's been frustrating.
Yeah, no, absolutely frustrating. But the thing with the Mariners this year, which is kind of crazy, is I think they're fifth or sixth in ERA all over baseball for the whole entire season, something right around that. They're 15th in total runs scored. They have 27 plus 27 run differential. Usually you see those type of numbers. You're talking about a team 5, 6, 7, 8 games above 500 just for, some fun here. The Miami Marlins 6 games above 500 are a minus 25. The Phillies 7 games above 500 are a plus 8. The Reds 8 games above 500 minus 4. The Brewers 11 games above 500 minus 5. Like we are like teams with plus 27 usually have a pretty good record, and the Mariners just can't find a way to get over that hump. Like we have the best run differential compared to like our record, other than the Chicago Cubs, who are 3 games below 500 and have a plus 41 run differential. Us and the Cubs are just having a very, very unlucky season, and at some point, something has to give. Either our luck has to change, or that run differential is going to go down. One of the two.
If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see I've made a disgusted face this whole time he was talking, because I want to ask, you're my brother, okay? For those that don't know, this is a brothers podcast, okay? I'm Sami, the younger brother's George, my older brother, and he's saying all this stuff, and he's saying it as if he doesn't know what it's like being a Mariners fan. Of course we have a plus 26 run differential over 500. Of course, because that's like this is a classic Seattle Mariners team. We've won 90 games 2 years in a row. Somehow the first year we win 90 in the middle of a 20-year drought. We can't make the playoffs. The second year, thankfully, we did. But of course, our first game in Houston, we lose on a walk-off to Yordan Alvarez. And then, of course, this year we're supposed to be good, and we have a plus 26 run differential, and our pitching's dominant. But of course, we're 500, potentially going to be under 500 if we lose tonight. That's just what happens when you're a Mariners fan, and it's frustrating, right? And it's frustrating because you have no idea if this team's going to be buying or selling at the deadline. There's a strong possibility like Teoscar Hernandez and Paul Sewald and a couple other guys are not on our team in like 10 days. And there's a strong possibility, though, that if you win 3 games in a row, that they're on your team. But you never know with this ownership. You never know if Jerry DiPoto, and that's what's confusing about this season.
Yeah, I have no idea what this team's going to do. So I was just going to actually ask you, what do you think they're going to do? Because this team is like, I mean, I'll give you mine, I guess, first. But I think the Mariners team is going to be like one of those bargain shoppers where they might pick up a piece. They're not going to be fully sellers. They're not going to be fully buyers. But if
you're telling me that Jerry and John Stand are going to go cheap? Is that if they find something?
I'm not even saying cheap. I just feel like they don't know what to do. I feel like they're just going to go to the thrift shop and find like a used T-shirt for Halloween.
I don't understand the reference, but I'm sure there are other people that might understand it. So I'm just going to say yes. I know, but I don't. But they're gonna bargain and they're gonna be cheap because that's what the Mariners do, and that's what Jerry has to do. Maybe he doesn't want to, but that's what he has to do also because of Stanton. Overall, I think it all depends. It's on August 1st is the deadline. The next 3 or 4 games is going to tell us a lot. I think.
I mean, we'll probably be 500, and you'll probably have no idea what to do either.
Well,
you'll be confused.
Oh no, I think there's. I was just going to say, I think there's 3 different scenarios. And I think 2 of them have the same answer, and 1 has a different answer. I think if this team is still 54 or 53 and 53 in 5-6 days, I do think they're going to sell. I don't think a 500 team at the deadline is not a team that, especially for a cheap team like Stanton's going to say, I'm not going to pay Hernandez next year if we're not good this year. We might as well get something for him right now at the trade deadline, a prospect. We might as well trade Seawald and get something for him at the deadline if we're not competing. That's what I see it as. If we're below 500, we're a seller. And I think the only way we're going to be a buyer or stay put is like these next. You have to win today and tomorrow against Minnesota. And this weekend against Arizona, like win 2 out of 3 and somehow be at that 2 or 3 games above 500 and hope that as a clubhouse, as Jerry, as Scott, they can convince each other that there's a shot and they might keep it together or buy a small piece, like you said, a bargain piece. Otherwise, if they lose tonight and tomorrow to Minnesota and lose 2 out of 3 to Arizona, this team's, there's no way this team's spending $1 in positive, like, or buying.
Right, but that doesn't mean, I don't think it necessarily means they're going to sell, because I also think this team doesn't believe they're years away from contending. I don't think they're complete sellers. I don't think there's a place where they're complete sellers at the deadline.
Yeah, I actually had this conversation with a lot of my buddies on chat this morning. Shout out Riley Brooks, Kit Hawkins, Austin Lee. I was talking to them on this Mariners group chat every day. And Riley said the same thing that you said. He was saying like, well, everyone's talking about like Seawald might get traded and Hernandez on a contract here, so maybe a little different. But like, He was like, at what point are you complete sellers if you think your future is bright? Like you can't sell and then say like, we're supposed
to be Sammy, his job can't be that safe if he's a seller and they go another like few years. Like he needs to win. And Scott, like they gotta win at some point. So I think like they can't really be sellers and just say, hey, we're gonna rebuild the farm system and wait for 6 more years, because then it's gonna be another GM who's probably gonna be us, joint GMs of the Seattle Mariners, taking care of this team.
That probably go even worse for them, but I'm like, give me Ohtani. Our owner's like, we can't sign. I don't have enough money. I don't know what else to do then. I don't know who to sign. I think that's the problem, though. I think last year making the playoffs bought Scott and Jerry both like another 2 years.
2 years.
Like this year and next year. If they miss the playoffs this year and next year, Jerry's not around.
I mean, so there's no way. That's why I don't think he can sell and just come back and say, well, wait 4 more years as I got these fucking awesome prospects out in Chattanooga.
And I know that they know that being cheap doesn't work anymore, right? I mean,
right. But the owner is cheap, though. So unfortunately, like that's his problem.
The owner, you have to somewhat like, you can be cheap in the MLB without being like overly like. They're not overly cheap anymore. They paid Julio pretty hefty amount.
They're frugal, but not cheap.
They're frugal, yeah. Like, but you could have like, and like think about it. They're not that. I mean, they've also just made some bad decisions. Like AJ Pollock for $8 million is. We could have had Carlos Santana sign with the Pirates for like $1 million. I mean, Carlos Santana was like he was even known, like apparently Julio Rodriguez loved him. He was a huge clubhouse vibe guy. Like there's also small decisions like that where it's like if you paid Santana like $1 or $2 million and kept him over Pollock, and you would have had a couple more million to spend maybe on a bullpen arm, and you'd be talking about a different season. So there's obviously some regretful decisions that happens in any sport. I'm not blaming Jerry. I'm just saying that happens. But overall, he has this year and next year. Otherwise, if you're Stanton and you're like, I had a great revenue year in 2022 or 2023, and then it starts to go down and down, and the team's getting worse. He's going to want to make a change because the Mariners owner loves his pockets, and he probably saw last year as a great year, not spending that much and making a lot more money by having the playoffs, by having packed crowds in August and September. They have one more year, though, because I think no matter what happens this year, too, Stanton's not going to be that disappointed. I'll tell you why. It's because next month, the crowd's not going to be much less. I mean, if we're hovering around 500 and we're 3 games out of the wild card, there'll be people in sunny, nice, the last good month or the last 2 good months in Seattle before the rain comes. Stanton's going to make money. The crowd's going to be there because we're not that bad, right? We're not that good, but we're not that bad. So I just don't know what the hell they're going to decide because there's so many factors, like you said. Dipoto's job. If we're selling, are we selling next year and the year after too? And like our owner does like making money. So he wants a useful product to make more money on the field, at Hatback, at the restaurants that they open. So
all I know is if anyone came to this podcast for some answers, we did not give you any.
We have no fucking answers yet. The whole spiel was,
love you, Sam. Love you, little bro. But man, that rambling came out with nothing because I feel the same way. No, I have no idea.
Yeah, none of us have any idea. But that's the whole point. Like the whole point is that the Mariners are 500 again for the 50th time this year. They were 1-1, they were 2-2, they were 6-6, they were 10-10, they were 42-42, they were 48-48. Now they're 50-50. That's who the Mariners are. But there's jobs on the line for GMs and coaches. There is, if you sell, like, what the hell does that mean? I think that's the best point here too, George, is you said it, and I said, my buddy said it this morning, is, yeah, you can sell, but does that mean you give up next year? Like, you can't sell if you're supposed to be good, right? For the next year.
Well, I mean, it's also, I don't think it's a good way to look at it. It's also not fair. Like, let's say you did sell Hernandez for some prospects, knowing that next offseason you're going in to spend money on a marquee free agent like Ohtani. I'm not saying we're going to get Ohtani, but then again, so you're like, all right, well, anyway, Hernandez is not going to be around. He's not in our long-term plans. So we might as well sell him now, get something, and then use the money that we would have used to sign him for something just as good or better. Well, Ohtani would be better. But if you know what I mean, like it depends on what your thoughts are on Hernandez, for example. With someone like Seawald has a few years left on his deal and he's relatively inexpensive. Selling him would be like, all right, yeah, we're giving up. Even on next year.
But it also wouldn't be if you have good relief
other ideas. Yeah.
Or you get a young relief pitcher that's coming up next year. Like Diamondbacks might be trying to contend right now. You trade it to a team like them or the Brewers. That's where it's just like complicated.
I'm not doing any more trades with the Diamondbacks if I'm the Mariners.
Why?
I don't know. I just feel like they win our trades against us all the time.
I don't know. Haniger and Segura had a great time with us.
I guess, but Marte's still freaking really good for them. Taijuan Walker was better than Haniger for us. I don't know, just in general.
That one was very odd. I don't know.
I'm just not doing trades with the Diamondbacks anymore.
Well, they might be. There's a lot. They have the worst like bullpen right now in baseball, and that's where like people are saying Seawald could go. Yeah. So,
but then again, you look at like where we were a few years ago, and we like I told you a few years ago that we would not regret the Kendall Graveman trade. You'd be like, yeah, that's weird. I would thought we would regret it. We haven't regretted that.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't bad, but didn't really like. Who'd we get for him? What was his name?
Oh God, yeah, he sucked.
Yeah, last year. Why can't I remember his name? That's actually I can tell you why, because he sucked.
Yeah, second baseman.
Yeah, I was gonna say Caballero, but honestly, we've had a lot of turnover. I can't remember people's names for some reason recently. But more importantly, my point is, I bet you also there's players on the Mariners, there's people like Jerry Dipoto himself that are also thinking kind of what we're thinking. It's like, well, what does this mean? We're 20, like we're plus 26.
Yep.
And we're at 500 and we keep getting hella close to winning games that we won last year, but we're not winning them this year. So it's, I'll be honest, like as a GM or coach probably right now, this is probably the toughest situation you could be in. If you suck, it's easy. Hey, take our best player. Let's get more prospects. When you're really good and your owner tells you go buy at the deadline, that's also not that hard. This is the shit zone.
Yeah, I mean, this is where if this was a basketball team like in the NBA, this is definitely where you would not want to be hovering around 500 for multiple years because like baseball is a little bit different. The draft isn't like so instant, but like if you want to put it in NBA terms, this is exactly where you don't want to be because then all of a sudden you're like the Chicago Bulls with Zach LaVine hovering around 500 each and every year.
Very interesting example considering he's a guy from Seattle.
That's kind of was the whole like bringing it back to Seattle thing.
Are you kicking something, George? There's a lot of noise going on over there.
No, not kicking anything.
A lot of moving of your chair noises.
The chair shouldn't be that loud, but I guess it is. I'll try not to move my chair as much. I was just trying to get comfortable.
Anyways, more importantly, yeah, it's gone. Now you stop moving. More importantly, Mariners now, George. It is the what? It's the bottom of the or top of the 8th or 9th?
Top of the 9th, 2 outs, runners on 1st and 3rd.
I thought there was no outs. What are you talking about?
No outs or those blue? I can't tell really.
There's no outs, runners on 1st and 3rd, and top of the 9th. Colton Wong just had a nice little bunt. So things could be looking up today again, George. It's like the classic, we're back. Like if we win today, 1 game over 500, which will likely mean we'll lose the next game. But we'll see what happens. Buyers or sellers? The answer is we don't fucking know.
Exactly. Buyers or sellers? Neither.
We don't know.